is so good to have you join us for another exciting discussion on Choices Global, a production of First Assembly of God, Georgetown, Guyana, and the diaspora. In the first episode, we commenced a discussion on road safety and traffic management. Today, we conclude this discussion, narrowing the focus on workable solutions that can be implemented in Guyana and even the diaspora. Our panelists in our discussion are doctoral student and new director of the Assemblies of God Guyana, Reverend Winston Asana, medical student and youth leader advocate LaShonda Kelman, joining us from Guyana, Mr. and Mrs. Corbin, who work and reside in Geneva, Switzerland. Together, I'm your moderator, Dr. Salisha from the US. Welcome, panelists. In this concluding episode on road safety and traffic management, we want to continue our discussion from episode one, where we introduced and examined the culture or disrespect for time and road usage, among other issues surrounding road safety and traffic management. And as we start off our discussion, we'll begin to dream how we can have a mobility plan, as Chevron quoted in the first episode. Kurt and Lashonda, as it relates to traffic management, would the automation and increase of traffic fines assist in curbing reckless usage of our roadways? We're now beginning to dream. So, viewers, dream with us. Kurt and Lashonda, your thoughts.
Thank you, Dr. Salisha. I like that. Viewers dream with us. Yes, in one word, yes, I do think automation of our traffic fine system or the mobility our mobility system can help us tremendously. Why do I say that? Because of where I'm living and I've seen it work. Practical personal experience as well. I came from Guyana 10 years ago, over 10 years now. And yes, I came from Guyana. So at the beginning, my foot was a little bit heavy. A little bit heavy meaning I got two fines in my mailbox. You heard me, in my mailbox. The traffic police weren't on the road as we have them. Their system is more automated. It's a developed country, fine. We're dreaming. That's where we want to go. So what am I saying? It came to my mailbox. I wasn't even aware it was flashed in that area. I thought I was doing, within the speed limit, but it wasn't excessive. It was just over. As Siobhan alluded to in a previous program, you have 10%, you have a leeway between the speed limit of every speed limit is a 10% markup. And once you go over that 10% grace period, you have to start paying the fine. So the human factor was cut out. A significant part of that human factor was cut out. The camera flashed, the human person, all they had to do was read that flash and send it to you via your mail. So our GRA system needs to be linked with the police system and whatever other system that is required to make you receive that reading in your mailbox. Once we cut out that human factor, Dr. Salisha, it's going to help us tremendously because when I felt that fine in my pocket, the first time it was, this is hard. The next time I was over by one other kilometer, I think 3 kilometers over the grace period that was given, and it was like almost 80 something francs, which is like what a significant amount in Guyana dollars. And that was the last time I was speeding. It wasn't a deliberate speeding. I was just over the. I thought I was within. I didn't check, and that the second time I paid that fine, I realized I was wasting money and there was no one to receive the money for me to pay less, but I was wasting money. So automation of our mobility system where we pay fines, and fines should not be viewed as something that is draconian or something that is punishment. The fine should be viewed, or the camera should be viewed as a rain check, as keeping you in check. So if you don't want to pay the fine, then don't speed. It's not imposing, or the authorities want to take money away from you. We are encouraging you to obey. We're encouraging you not to drink. We're encouraging you to obey. You will get there on time. Just take it a little slow. Take it a little bit slow. So yes, Dr. Salisha, automating of this system will help us tremendously.
Lashonda, your thoughts?
In addition to that, fines in it of itself can be a very tricky punishment because when you look at it, for example, a $5,000 fine would not be as impactful on a person earning $500,000 a month as someone who's earning $85,000 a month. So, in addition
Mm,
to automating fines, there must be also a skill to consider as well. Or determined based on the speed the person was going at. Because let's be honest, no one likes to lose money unnecessarily. And so the thought of having to pay fines repeatedly because you are breaking traffic laws, it already irks you. But the likelihood of someone who is earning a large salary, a large scale of income, incurring a fine of 500,000, um, they're likely to be a repeat offender because they're going to say, you know what? Well, it's just 500,000 drop in the bucket. That shouldn't really affect me, as opposed to someone who's earning 85,000. Also, in automating fines, it removes that human factor where police officers, traffic officials would want to, bend and flex towards the will of the person driving the vehicle. So they might be either sympathetic or might know the person who would have broken the traffic offense and might be willing to let that person go. It removes that human factor and it allows also for proper documentation and efficiency when paying these fines. Historically, a problem we have in Guyana is that when persons receive tickets, they would not necessarily pay them because, it's documentation, it's paper, and that would get lost in the system, so that person will get away with a charge. However, with automation, you're using a computerized system that person can be flagged. And as Kurt would have mentioned earlier, with you incorporating GRA, and not just GRA, other government agencies in this automated system, that person can be picked up on when they're missing a fine, either if they want to apply for a loan or some grants, that will appear on their record when they decide to go to these different institutions, and that would force them to pay. So I believe automation is the right way to go. We actually have started in that direction, I believe, on the East Bank corridor, the new road. They would have set up cameras that would have picked up vehicles speeding and would have tagged them and issued tickets to these vehicles. And so it's a matter of that being widespread now, not just to the East Bank corridor, but to the East Coast and even in inner city streets as well.
thank you, Lashonda. And Kurt, I drove in New York. I'm now in Florida, but driving in New York, the city speed limit's 20 kilometers per hour, and I got tickets for just parking in the wrong zone because I did not pay attention to what was happening around me. And then I got a ticket because my vehicle, is what they call like the fitness in Guyana. It's a little sticker on my windshield, and it expired by maybe a couple of hours. So it was due to be renewed in October. We were at the 30th of September, and the 1st of October, I got up to a ticket stick on my windshield for 65 US because it had just expired. And so I have been very cautious in looking at that date and ensuring that the next time I renew the inspection, they call it the vehicle inspection. Um, Punitive measures work, but LaShawn, you did make an interesting point about the weight of it. And we now have to work, and we don't want it to be draconian, but we want it to be used as a deterrent where persons will, oh, I can pay 1,000 comparative to someone who may not be able to afford it. But these are going into our second discourse, thinking about what are some key challenges faced by developing countries in managing their traffic and transportation infrastructure? Reverend Asana and Chevron. Lashonda started to talk about this, but can you expand a little on some of the challenges faced by developing countries to implement some of these punitive measures?
Thank you again, Dr. Salisha. And remember, we planned that on this program we're going to dream. But I'm glad how you have brought us back to the realities of life and to consider ourselves as a developing country. What does that mean? It means that we short some of the resources that the developed countries have. We short some of the infrastructure that the developed countries have. And while we would like to go automotive, we still have to put that structure in place so that we will be able to effectively, in a fair and balanced manner, um, execute that desire. I know there are movements towards that, and Lashana did reference the new East Bank Highway that was developed, has been developed with some of those systems in place. But it is something that can be developed. We have challenges with infrastructure development. We have challenges with infrastructure maintenance. But I have seen that we have been using effectively the credit bureau when we go for loans. It is amazing how they are able to track the the places you would have borrowed from to be able to effectively calculate your credit ratio, which means that the capacity is there. And so, though it is difficult to or challenging to institute and to set up the infrastructure, I think it is possible. And there is where the hope lies. We have challenges with roads. We have challenges in maintaining roads. We need much more roads in a developing country like Guyana. We need more roads. I am trying to do some work on a ratio between the amount of cars we import and road users, especially in city areas, and the road capacity. It, I don't think that we have sufficient roads to take off the amount of vehicles. And then with the private vehicles, you have the competition of trucks. We have a major infrastructure program going on, building of houses and roads, and so you need to commute sand and cement and all the heavy duty stuff for building. I somehow believe that there should be a special road design for that kind of vehicle movement, but we don't have it in place. If you check back the stats, it shows that a high percentage of the accidents that have taken place recently have actually occurred with or amongst these large heavy duty vehicles. Some will even call it sand trucks and etc. So we have a challenge. We have a challenge in effectively licensing. Um, we have to find a way to effectively certify moving out the corruption and effectively equipping. We do have a problem there, and I pray we can go past those challenges as a developing country.
Can build on top of what Reverend Osana has shared, and he raised the concern of the types of vehicles causing accidents. And allow me or permit me always with some statistics. When we look at what I call the World Bank Group, and they talk about the global road safety facility. They have some stats, unfortunately, at 2016, but still relevant for us to frame the context. And they show about 50% of our road accidents are actually from four wheeler vehicles, whether trucks or cars. They talk about another 20% thereabouts from two to three wheelers. And if you look at the number or percentage of pedestrian accidents or persons fatalities from pedestrians, it's about 25%. The good news is that we have a lower ratio of pedestrian accidents to the region in which Guyana is. But the bad news, of course, is that there's still too many. If we're to dream, maybe one of the things that I would want to encourage is, because this program is hosted by First Assembly of God, a church, a faith based organization, we have an opportunity to use every means of educating the public to the safety of road use. We have every opportunity to allow our youths to dream about how they can become the solution by the careers that they choose and by the way in which they will invest not only their own monies, but the monies of our country when they become our leaders. For example, we need data scientists and actuarial scientists who will give us the data to help us to see where do we focus our efforts. Are our accidents in rural versus urban areas? We need our University of Guyana to have those programs about urban planning so that we will have engineers and the persons who focus on traffic management to tell us when is our peak and what are the solutions to ease our peak period traffic. Those who will tell us where do we build our secondary roads. And those are not just for us who are commuting every day, but for when we want to attract tourists, for when we want to demonstrate that we can host conferences. We cannot have a single road that creates a bottleneck to the airport. I can celebrate the fact that we now have a secondary airport at Ogle and not just the Chedi Jagan International. And that should bode well for overseas persons who may be viewing this program. But we still have an opportunity to do more. We also have an opportunity to have those persons who look at water transportation. So I just wanted to signal, as we dream, I see lots of opportunities for our young people who are going out to study to go and study in the uncommon subjects and areas. We want to have persons who don't only look at medicine, but those who, and LaShonda, I'm challenging you, that look at post accident care. You know, here in Geneva, we just visited with a friend or a family friend who has had a surgery, and there is a specific rehabilitation facility. So they were in hospital, and then post surgery, there is this specific facility. So not only is it about our young people dreaming and the careers that they can have, but also where investment can come, either from overseas based Guyanese, from local Guyanese, and so on. So I want us to continue dreaming, and I hope our listeners are following us in this direction. Felicia.
Yes, indeed. I do applaud what you just said and how we begin to approach traffic management from that holistic approach. How we plan, how we're careful. It seems we have a more reactive approach to road safety and traffic management rather than a more forward thinking approach. And so as we begin to dream, and we, to our audience, you can leave comments on this program. What are your thoughts as we begin to dream together how our policymakers can begin to implement these grand ideas that we have? And they're not only grand ideas because we pluck them out of the sky. We've experienced some of these ideas, we've experienced some of this planning and design in our cities. But Kurt, how can we are there unique cultural or regional approaches to traffic management that have proven effective that we can now apply to our situation in Guyana? Chevron started to mention some about our roadways and even the diversion from the two different airports that we can use. But how can we implement some cultural or regional approaches to traffic management?
Yes, Dr. Salisha, thank you for the question. Um, as Chevron was speaking, I was also thinking, and you guys have used the word already. It's a simple word. It's about planning. You know,
Mm-hmm.
planning, but we also have to have the human resources to do this plan. It may seem that we're not doing it in Guyana or we're doing it on a lower scale. It may seem. I'm also aware that Guyana has many laws, or all the laws, I should say, that govern speeding and fines and removing a license after so many offenses and so on and so forth. It's all there. But at the end of the day, it's about enforcement. And it's about enforcement, as LaShonda said, in an equitable manner, in a justifiable manner. And that is what we're lacking. We have rules, we have laws. It's not that we are a wild or a careless society, but the problem is about enforcing these laws in a just manner, justified manner that would deter others from doing it. It's not about punishment. It's about deterrent, being deterring persons. So planning. Reverend Asana spoke about trucks. Truck should be allocated specific roads to drive on and should be allocated specific times, as is done around the world or in developed countries. Again, I'm aware that there's an effort to do this. However, the truck drivers disregard this and they still go into streets that they shouldn't go and they break up. I know of someone who owns a truck. He lives next to a family member, and the roadway was just built for cars. And they keep telling him that there was even a barrier at the top, so to barricade trucks from going. They broke it down, and he keeps parking his truck in the street. Of course, after a few months, the street became destroyed, back to a mud dam. No action was taken. So these are the things. I know we have plans, but our problem is about enforcing these plans. Our problem, citizens, you need to report more. You need to ensure that you protect your property, that the leaders of the government of the day invested so much finance in. So we need to allocate the truck specific roads, specific times to you. The trucks cannot be competing with minibuses and cars in the center city at midday. That's a no. We have to move from working only in the day to working in the night. The private sector organization needs to understand this. It's a holistic process, as you said, Dr. Salisha. Everyone has to come on board. The private sector cannot say, "Oh, it's better to work or it's cheaper to work in the day." It has to be, you have to give something. The guys who work in the private minibuses at the moment, since there is no public transportation, you cannot try or hustle, as we say, to make the boss's target, and then you want to do two three trips for yourself. With you know what I'm getting at. You're pressing the road, you're pressing and you're pushing. There's a line at some car park, but you want to jump the line, and then there's a fight, and then there's a stabbing, and it goes on. You see how this traffic management, you see how it has this spiraling effect, and that goes into disregard and disrespect and chaos and death. That is what we're trying to avoid. So Chevron mentioned the waterways. I think it's time that we have running lights on those boats that use our waterways. I read recently there were two roads. There were two boats in the water, and they were going. Some decide one decided to use the right, and the other one choose the same direction, and lives were lost. So there's a time now for us to apply running lights on those waterways, maybe even to stop them from working in the evening. But the authorities of the day need to come to that, make that decision, Dr. Salisha.
Thank you so much, Kurt. Lashonda, as a activist, youth advocate, leader, in Guyana, what are some future trends in traffic management you would like to see as a youth, and how they might reshape the way we commute and navigate our cities to ensure safety and security? And then I'll also ask Reverend Asana to comment.
Well, first, I believe that we should be more intentional in our road designs and safety patterning. So we don't just build a road, build a lane that could fit one vehicle, and that's it. But we should look at ways in which we could accommodate other various modes of transportation, whether it be cars, bicycles. We could accommodate buses, a lane for buses. We should also look for ways in which we could ensure that persons, especially those traveling late at night, they can be alert. So you have these safety ripples or bumps that make noise every meter or so, so that they could stay awake. You have areas where, for example, you have traffic lights. Some traffic lights don't have the pedestrian man that would indicate to the pedestrians that it's time to cross. We should develop traffic lights that would allow for you to manually control the walkman. So yes, you have a major road, vehicles going, the lights say green or stop, go or stop for the cars. But if you want to cross the road, you should be able to press a button, and that would cause all the other lights to stop so that you could go across that road. I think that we also should have better visibility in our roadways, our waterways, even our airways, so that when it comes to especially rainy weather, if the place gets foggy, it wouldn't be uh just by faith that we go on the roadway, but we should be able to see that roadway. We have better reflectors on the roadway, and that we maintain our different modes of transportation, whether it's water, road, or air, that these things are maintained. They're not just done when we have officials visiting the country or we have special meetings to, spruce up or let the country look beautiful. But these every 6 months, every year, of course, we'll have to have the persons who would be able to gather the data to determine how often we maintain these infrastructure. But we should create these deadlines so that, okay, rather than wait on certain something to happen, we do it repeatedly within a year so that it doesn't fade away, it doesn't run down. I also believe that we could have better public transportation. So you have your private minibuses. I would have heard my parents, my grandparents talk about these big buses they used to have long ago in the 60s and the 70s. Of course, you would want to bring back a modernized version of these buses so that persons could comfortably sit and use them. I would have read or heard, sorry, on the internet, persons who would have had the same discussion on traffic and roadway issues. They mentioned that a good indication of whether a country is developed or not is how much of the persons are willing to use the public transportation system. If you have a very good public transportation system, you would not require so many vehicles on the road. And that does not just limited to benefiting road use and decreasing road accidents, but even our environment. It can reduce
Yeah.
emissions produced by vehicles. It could, contribute to a decrease in global
Clean.
warming and climate change. So
Mhm.
these are the things that we should take into mind. We there's a rise in electric vehicles now. So instead of having to stop at a gas station, you can be in the comfort of your home, um, refilling your vehicle with electricity. Again, not just limited it to the price of gas or whether or not you have a wider variety of land to use for other resources, but it comes back to climate change as well. So how we use our roadways, our waterways, our airway is not just limited to preventing accidents and making it comfortable for us as users of these different modes of transportation, but it can affect our planet as well. And well, we all reside on Earth, whether it's now or in the future, what happens to the planet will affect all of us.
Thank you so much, Lashonda. Reverend Asana, closing remarks.
Well, we generally commute either by air, road, or water. I find that when we commute by air, we give much more attention than any of the other two. And I guess we do that because we understand uh, the level of the catastrophe if we fail. We have a lesser amount of casualties on the water, and I rather suspect again nobody wants to drown. So it brings us back to what we do on the roads. And I say these are my final comments. One, I would love to see us develop a public transportation system. I think it is going to remove the many private vehicles we have on the roads and remove the bullyism and the challenges that we face in terms of timing. I also would like to see us maintain the infrastructure because of the many accidents we have. Infrastructure goes very quickly, lights, bridges, signs, and we have to find a way to replace them. And finally, I would like us all to take that personal responsibility. At the end of the day, it is personal responsibility. Yes, that care, that consideration, that common sense, that caution, that courtesy, it is my responsibility to take. And I pray that I will not only take it, but I will be able to transmit that same kind of attitude and aptitude to some other road user. And with God's help, we will do better.
Kurt and Chevron, closing remarks.
I would like to see us compile a holistic plan. When I say us, I'm talking about the government of the day, whichever government it is, and the opposition in our nation. Why do I want to see that? Remember, we were speaking about dreaming. I would like to see that because I was reading recently in the country that I reside in, there is a 25-year plan of where they will build out communities and where they will build out roads and train lines and everything. And it doesn't matter whether the government changes in Bern, which is the capital or so, that 25-year plan is there. In our context, which is highly fractional, uh, but it's not there's not so much unity at the moment. We need us to come together and come up with a plan that would help to take us forward for the next 30 years. Can we do that? I would love to see that.
Can we do it? Yes, we
I
can.
think we can.
This is one of our national songs. Yeah. So yes, we
Yes.
can. I think as I wrap up, I'd like to first celebrate how far we've come. Does Guyana have a strategy? Yes. Is it fully funded? Maybe not. And the continuity that Kurt speaks about means that this must not sit at the government and the opposition level only, but it must sit with every citizen who wants to contribute by their own personal responsibility, by their own personal willingness to comply, but also by their willingness to contribute to the success of whatever plan is laid out at the community level and at the national level. This is where I want us to dream. Lashonda, as our youth advocate on this program, has given some very bold suggestions, and I endorse them all. I want us to think further, like Kurt said, than just tomorrow or 5 years. We need to have a 25 to 30-year plan where we contemplate not only where Guyana is today, but how we will be impacted by weather. So, how can we be sustainable with electric cars and all of these things? How will we provide mobility and equality for every kind of citizen? Meaning that when I live and work in Europe, I see persons who are, in some case, differently able, but they are as empowered as I am because they have mobility, and the roads and the connections to the malls allow those persons to independently drive whatever kind of mobile wheelchair, if you want to call it that. They can go shopping, they can go to the supermarket, and so it means that persons who are even not as mobile as some of us, they have a fulfilling life. And this is where I keep saying that the mobility plan that we must have as Guyanese must lift us a little higher. We are a developing nation. We might soon be considered developed, but developed can only be measured not by money, but by the quality of life that our citizens have, by the quality of life that tourists and others who visit will have. And so I hope that we can continue to dream. Put the money there, but we as citizens have a part to play. And I again want to commend First Assembly for producing a program like this that raises this awareness at the community and individual level.
Thank you so much, panelists. Our heartfelt gratitude to everyone of you who, and our valued viewers as well. Throughout the last two episodes of Choices Global, we have delved into various aspects of road safety, including culture, infrastructure, punitive measures. Chevron mentioned a mobility plan and vision, all aimed at managing traffic sustainably. In summary, though, the crux of the matter lies in each of us embracing responsibility for our conduct on the road and the transportation usage. And this involves showing, first of all, respect for ourselves. It begins with self governance and respect for our fellow road users. Unless we all personally commit to ensuring our safety and the safety of others, the scourge of road accidents will persist, unfortunately. And as we draw this discussion to a close, let us remember to be considerate of on our journeys, whether by vehicle, on foot, or even using public transportation. The preservation of human lives is of paramount importance, and it begins with each of us taking that responsibility and making it our own. Mark your calendars, October 8th and 22nd, for another timely and exciting discussion on Choices Global. I am Celicia, reminding you to always be kind.